Right now we kind of get to the instructor-facing part, and the quality of the output, just like with the OCR, can depend on the quality, the accessibility of the original, right? Ally is going to use some fancy machine learning algorithms to do stuff, but there's only so much a machine can do with an original. And there's also parts of accessibility that are very qualitative in nature that are also really involve the subject matter expert. Things like an image description, right? I mean, there's image technology that to try to figure out it's a tree, but you add it as an instructor. What is the point of that tree? What is the, what's the aspect that the student is supposed to focus on? Things like a heading structure, right? Ally will try to infer a heading structure, but when you had a good heading structure, it will really improve the quality of the outputs, right? Because then the reading order will be correct. And so, to me, it's just an important piece of this message for faculty is that, making some simple accessibility fixes to your original can have a big impact on the quality of these learning tools that many of your students can take advantage of, not just your students with disabilities. So adding that alt text or adding that heading structure, it's not just benefiting the blind user that you might have in your course in 2 years, but hopefully it's benefiting like that student from Chico State who's wanting to listening to your lecture content on the drive back and forth to school. So it's a nice way to frame it as opposed to the legal thing, right? You're going to get sued if you don't have those image captions. This is about benefiting students. And so you're all probably more familiar with this side of Ally, which is the instructor feedback portion of it. So you see the indicator next to your course file. You click on the indicator. You get a sense of what the score is, right? So the score is based on the WCAG standards. So it's not something that we invented. Those are, the kind of universal web standards. One button I notice people miss a lot is that all issues button up there at the top right. So sometimes your file will have multiple issues. We'll show you the most pressing issue first, but it's always good to check if, what are all of the issues with that file. You can get step-by-step feedback about what the issues are, how they affect accessibility, as well as directions about how to use the authoring tool to make the fixes. So typically you're going to leave Ally and go back to your Word or your PowerPoint document to make the fixes. And that's pretty deliberate. If you were fixing everything after the fact in Ally, you would never learn how to use the tools correctly. You wouldn't use PowerPoint or Word correctly. And so you'll never start to make accessibility part of like your authoring practice, which is really where you want to get with this stuff. If you're always doing it after the fact, then it's always kind of the equivalent of you had an inaccessible building and you put the elevator all the way around the back, so it was difficult for people to access. The idea is make it inclusive from the start, and it will just be an easier part of your workflow. Then, of course, then you can also track your progress, so Ally will rescore it. Not every piece of content you'll get to 100. It's okay. There may be like weird kinds of contrast issues with your document. They may not be affecting accessibility in a severe way. It's about thinking about impact. What documents can I work on that I can improve, again, that can help ensure that my students have access to really high quality alternative formats is a nice way to think about it. I even have one instructor, he's down at what's the name of the school? It's a medical school in South Carolina, and he teaches pharmacy courses. And what he started to do, because he knew a lot of his students access the MP3 audio while they're stuck in Charleston traffic, he has started to download his content as MP3 and listen to it as a way to revise it and edit it, right? Because listening to it, is it clear? Is the language structure clear? It's a way for him to kind of proofread his work. So interesting to think about, again, those outputs as a way to kind of consider your original. There's also this part. Is this turned on here, Christopher? Yes. The course report. So this is pretty new, so I don't have a lot of stories to share about how people are using it yet. But this is now available for each of your courses. You can pull up this course report, and it's hard to see it in the screenshot here, but
it's not by default on, so you have to add it, or just call one of us, and anybody in the city can add it for you real quick.
Yeah, so it will pop up. It's on the left-hand navigation bar of Canvas. It says there you go, accessibility report. There you go. 87%. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to be green.
Yeah. It's good to be green.
So you get, as you mentioned, you have your overall course score. So that's the average of all the content in your course. You get this little wheel, which again, thinking about that first principle that representing learning content in different modalities and different formats, that wheel is a great instructional design tool. It gives you a breakdown of the types of content that you have. Right? Is my course a bunch of PowerPoint files that I dumped in there, or is there a lot of HTML content where I'm building out a kind of, a very hybrid kind of experience? Does it have different types of media? Does it have images? So really using that as a way to think about that first principle in UDL. And then the course report gives you basically 3 pathways to attack your issues. So in the top right, you can focus on the easiest stuff to fix or the lowest scoring files. So the easiest stuff is typically images, Word documents, like your syllabus is always a great place to start for fixing up content accessibility issues. You can attack it at the issue level. So if you want to see all of your documents with contrast issues, or all of your scanned PDFs, you can kind of knock those out that way, or you can flip over to the file view and see a list of all your files. So one of those more challenging things, it could be the scanned PDF. If you have an old scan, you're having trouble finding a cleaner scan, reaching out to the library too is always a good place to go. Your untagged PDFs, journal articles are notorious for being untagged. So that may be something that you come across where it's not going to be up to you to try to tag this third-party resource, but Christopher and the team can help you there. So yeah, you want to definitely think kind of strategically, because it does take some time to get to an accessible course. It does take some time. So thinking about, again, which content, which kind of issues can I get the most bang for my buck that I can really help make a difference for students that are gonna be taking the course. Yeah, going back to the wheel thing, I don't think that there's a right or wrong number. It depends so much on the type of course it is, the type of content that you're working with. But diversity is good. There's no cookie cutter approach to it, but it's a good way for you to reflect, especially as your course grows and matures. I know that online courses that I taught, it wasn't until like the second year in that I felt that the course had really matured into something that I felt confident in, that the students I think was pretty intuitive in how they moved through it. Have you all come across, these are some basic issues that you would come across. HTML content, that's when you're building out your WYSIWYG, like your pages and things like that. Ally will check for that right now. You won't get a lot of feedback about how to fix those issues. So that if you come across that, that's something that we're working on. Hopefully soonish, you'll get some actual real-time feedback about how you're editing that content, making sure that that's accessible. One thing to be aware of too, which is I think interesting from an instructional design perspective, and it's a technical limitation of Ally right now, is we will only generate the MP3 up to 100,000 characters. So if it's a really long document, the MP3 will fail. So in some cases, I do see instructors where they're going and like chopping the document in half, so they have 2 or 3 chapters of a document. And I have found even for some students, again, with different types of anxiety issues and things like that, they open up a PDF that's 200 pages. Even if you told them to only read 60 of the pages, they still get all like, right? Or it's a huge file that they're downloading that now they have on their desktop, and so chunking out your files, making sure that your file size doesn't get too large or the documents don't get too large, I think it's just another one of those best practices. You don't really think of it. It's not something that I've thought about as an instructor very much. Like I would just upload a huge thing and tell them to read page 20 to 32, right? Like, well, they have extra if they want it, but it can really throw some students off. So adding, chunking it out or having what the required bit is and then having this, separately, however you want to approach it. But those are things I think to kind of be conscious about too, and as you move towards more inclusive course design. I was for the OER person in the room. I forgot this. So a good story there too is that I have seen institutions that have used like that wheel and this kind of view of your content to start to see like, oh, here's a publisher resource that we could swap out for an OER resource too. So kind of analyzing the content and looking for those opportunities. And I always thought, Christopher and I were talking about it at lunch today, I thought it would always be really cool too. Like, so I'm a big remix guy, so OER, you have kind of remix and stuff like that. And so you could have students that download MP3s of OER content and then chop them up in like an audio program and create like a podcast of the different readings, splice in their own reflections on it. You could have a whole kind of assignment that is, you're creating a podcast instead of a written piece, but you're mashing up quotes from the text with your own. And I just think it would be super cool to the HTML format, because the HTML format will also simplify the content a little bit. So it's great for copy and pasting and being able to inject other HTML into it. So, I mean, Christopher is doing that in the page content, being able to add images and things like that. And really with that type of content that you can do a lot of remixing and fair use with, it's just so cool as a learning opportunity.